In a market today, Koju was studying for his school exams with his friend Montauk and his friend Asag. The two left because they had to work later. After Koju finished his studies, as he was passing through an alley, he noticed someone was watching him and decided to pretend he hadn't noticed. The girl continued to follow him. Kojo noticed that the girl was wearing a school uniform, and he decided to shake her off until they both bumped into each other at the entrance of a shopping mall. Kojo pretended to be an Italian passing by. The girl told him to wait, but he said he wasn't the person she should be looking for and walked away. When he looked back, he noticed some men were hitting on the girl who was following him. He noticed the men had demon registration bracelets. He decided to help, but a strong wind lifted her skirt, and she beat up the men who were hitting on her. One of the men was a vampire and quite strong. People started to flee the area. They summoned a familiar, and the girl took out her spear to face him. She defeated his familiar and was about to deliver the final blow to the vampire when Kojou interfered and asked the vampire to take his friend and leave. She asked why he interfered in the fight, saying the vampire used a familiar in a public place, which was a crime. Kojou said he remembered her attacking first and asked if she would kill anyone who saw her underwear. Embarrassed, she asked if he saw it until another strong wind blew. She put away her spear, called him a pervert, and left. Kojou found her wallet on the ground, and her name was Yukena. The place where Kojou lives is 300 kilometers away from Japan and is home to vampires, demons, and other living beings on the brink of extinction. Kojou was a normal student until then, but everything changed 3 months ago. Kojou went to the school listed in Yukena's documents to return her wallet, but he couldn't find her. He started looking for other information in her wallet, then remembered the wind that blew her clothes, and he began to feel a desire for blood until Yukena found him and asked if he was feeling that way after smelling a girl's wallet. She asked why his nose was bleeding. He said he remembered yesterday. Yukena tried to get her wallet back, but Kojou wanted her to answer first why she was following him. She said she would take the wallet by force. Her stomach growled, and she was embarrassed. Kojou noticed she was out of money to buy her lunch and hadn't eaten since yesterday, so he returned her wallet, and they went to eat together. Yukena explained that she was part of an organization to prevent large-scale magical disasters and was following him because he kept his identity a secret. Kojou said he was a normal person before all this, and Yukena said that no normal person could become a vampire out of nowhere and that the only way would be to consume an ancestor to become one. Kojou said he was forced into it by the fourth ancestor. Suddenly, memories flashed through his mind, and he said he had no recollection of what happened and that whenever he tried to remember, this happened. Yukena went to clean the coffee he spilled on his leg while she cleaned it. She said she was ordered to eliminate Kojou if he was dangerous, and that from that moment on, she would stay close to him to observe. Suddenly, Kojou began to recall some memories. A girl with an arrow in her chest was in front of him, and Kojou was holding a crossbow. The girl said she would leave everything in his hands, and shortly after she turned to ashes. Days earlier, Yukena was seeking knowledge about the fourth ancestor. It is said that he is the most powerful vampire known and the only pureblood without any relatives. The organization asked her if she had ever seen the fourth ancestor. Yukena denied it. The organization said that if the fourth ancestor really existed, humanity would enter a war. The organization showed a photo of Kojou and gave her a weapon. The organization asked her to get close to Kojou and observe his actions, and if he was a dangerous being, she was to eliminate him. After waking up, Kojou found Yukena waiting by the building where he lived. She had moved to the apartment next to his and would be his neighbor. At Kojou's school, it was exam week, and he barely passed. His teacher was a mage, and one of the few people who knew Kojou was the fourth ancestor. Kojou took the opportunity to ask her if she knew anything about the Lion King organization. She said to avoid getting close to the members of that organization because they are dangerous. Shortly after, Kojou went with Yukena to the mall to buy some things for her to take to the new apartment. When the two returned from shopping, Kojou discovered that Yukena was friends with Naza, his sister. She invited Yukena to eat at Kojou's apartment. After eating, Yukena returned to her apartment. Kojou planned to sneak out that night. When he opened the door, he found Yukena completely drenched. She had just come out of the bath and ran to stop Kojou from leaving, so she decided to go out with him. While passing through a street, they spotted a game machine and decided to play. Kojou's teacher appeared and asked what they were doing so late. An explosion happened on the other side. Kojou grabbed Yukena's hand, and the two went to the explosion. A giant familiar was out of control. Yukena took out her weapon to stop it. She asked Kojou not to follow her, saying she would handle it. Two men were fighting at the scene. Yukena interfered in the fight. That man was an exorcist from the Western European Church, and he was hunting vampires. Yukena began to fight the exorcist. He was fighting better than her. The exorcist summoned his familiar. She was about to attack Yukena when Kojou appeared, striking and saving Yukena. He ended up fighting the exorcist until he was severely injured, and lightning began to emanate from Kojou's body. The exorcist decided to flee at that moment. The next day, news about the incident in the city circulated, and no one knew the true cause of it. Kojou asked Yukena if she was going to report it to the organization. She said no because one of the causes was her, and he saved her. Kojou told Yukena that the reason it happened was that the familiars didn't accept Kojou as their master because he was a vampire who had never sucked blood before. At school, the teacher was talking to Kojou and Yukena. She said that 6 other similar accidents had happened on the island, and that the exorcist was hunting demons and would probably hunt Kojou too. In a cafe, Yukena showed all the possible locations of the Western European Church. Kojou asked his friend Asag for help to access confidential information from these facilities. She found data about mounds in one of them, so Kojou and Yukena went to investigate the facilities. Yukena asked him to wait for her to return. He said he wouldn't leave her alone and would go with her, leaving her embarrassed. They went together. When they opened the door, they found a laboratory, and there were several homunculi inside. Even the girl from the accident appeared. She said that soon this island would sink. That girl was created to host a familiar, and they were using the power they took from the demons they defeated to make her strong. Kojou was irritated by this, so he attacked the afternoon, but he wasn't strong enough to fight her. Yukena even tried, but it didn't help. The exorcist was about to cut her, so Kojou stepped in front of the blow, and his head ended up being severed from his body. The exorcist continued on his way to the place where the core that keeps the island floating in the water was. Kojou woke up, his body fully regenerated after a while. Yukena began to cry emotionally because she thought he was dead. Kojou went to get up but slipped and fell on Yukena. Then he approached her neck and said she was fragrant and beautiful, leaving her very embarrassed. He got off her, and she called him a pervert. Tremors began to occur. When he picked up his phone, he saw news that the fundamental stone portal that keeps the island above water had been attacked, and he remembered that his friend was at work. He called Asag, and she told him everything that happened. The exorcist was almost reaching his goal. Yukena decided to let Kojou suck her blood so he could fight the exorcist using his familiars and save the island. He didn't want to suck her blood. She asked if she wasn't good enough and convinced him. He embraced death near the core. The exorcist was at the core, which was a relic of the Western European Church, and he wanted to recover it. Kojou and Yukena arrived before he could lay hands on the relic. Kojou had her fight on equal terms against the two. Kojou summoned his familiar and attacked the afternoon, but it had no effect. I had her go towards her and break the barrier that protected her. Today he attacked her with his familiar again, and so they defeated the afternoon. Yukena took advantage of the exorcist being distracted and struck him in the stomach, and so the two defeated him. Kojou embraced Yukena, leaving her embarrassed. Today, he jumped to the afternoon and sucked her blood. He wanted to turn her into a familiar and prevent her from dying. Yukena was angry at him for doing indecent things with girls. Shortly after waking up, Kojou found a beautiful breakfast on his table. He thought his mother had returned. He went to Nargza's room to ask if his mother had returned home. When he entered, Yukena was changing, and she attacked him for seeing her. Later on the subway, Yukena apologized to him and said it was her fault because she knew Kojou was a pervert and should have locked the door. Kojou asked why she didn't go to his house. Nargza said that Yukena would help choose a sports uniform for a school event. In the locker, Asag appeared and asked Kojou which sport he would participate in at the sports event. Kojou said he asked Motoke to put him in the easiest sport. When he followed her into the room, they discovered they were placed in the same badminton group. Far from the school, Professor Natsuki and Astarte were capturing a demon for committing crimes. Whatever Natsuki was looking for wasn't there. Back at school, Asag was finding her uniform too short to wear in the gym. With the weight, she was taking too long, so he went for a walk. When he went to sit on a bench outside, he encountered a tiger. Shortly after, another tiger appeared. Unfortunately, Kojou couldn't fight with his familiars there because it would endanger the school. Yukena appeared, threw her weapon at the monster, defeating it. Then she attacked the second monster and also defeated it. Kojou asked what she was doing there. She used a kind of magic butterfly that always warned her of what Kojou was doing. She said those monsters were called shinigamis and were usually used to send messages, not to be aggressive. Two students saw Yukena with her separated. Kojou told her to stay calm because she just looked like a girl with a bad cosplay. Embarrassed, Yukena asked him to stop looking at her. Kojou found a letter on the ground, probably left by the Shinigamis. Soon, Asag found them, and seeing the two together, she fled from there. In the market, Yukena said that the seal on the letter belonged to Lord Demetrio Vetter of Ardil, a subordinate of the first ancestor, and that he must be a vampire descendant of the first ancestor, and that he must be on the island to meet Kojou. In the invitation, he asked Kojou to bring his partner to his party. He asked if Yukena could go with him. She said yes, but she didn't have a party dress. When they got home, there was a package from the Lion King organization, and there was a dress inside. At night, today, Yukena was in front of a ship, and Yukena, embarrassed, asked him if her dress wasn't strange. Kojou said no. Yukena pointed only to stare at him, saying he had a very decent look. Kojou told her it was rare to see her wearing something in her hair. Yukena said it was a friend who gave it to her. On the ship, a woman was watching us. At the party, there were many data. They were looking for a messenger who would come into contact until they were attacked on the upper part of the ship by a man. He apologized for the rudeness and introduced himself to Kojou. He was Dimitri Vaylor. A girl named Tayaka appeared and asked Kojou to stay away from Yukena. The two were friends reuniting. Tayaka asked if she was okay. Kojou asked who she was. Yukena said she was a war dancer specializing in assassinations and was also a friend she mentioned earlier. At Asag's house, she commented with Motoki about Yukena and Kojou going out together. In the gym, Motoki told her to seduce and get information about their relationship. Back on the ship, Vaylor said he was in love with Kojou when he felt the presence of Kojou's fifth familiar. He felt love and said he would love him. Vaylor smelled Yukena's blood on Kojou and speculated that she would be his love rival. Yukena asked why they were there. He said they were there for love because of a man named Gardos, who was the leader of a very powerful faction on the island and wanted to end the sacred contract and take control of the first ancestor's domain. The first step for this would be to cause problems in the demon district. Yukena said she would handle it on her own and that no one should interfere. The next morning, Kojou woke up with Asag on top of him. He asked what she was planning. She said she heard that men like that. Kojou asked her to get off him, and the two lost their balance and fell to the floor when his sister opened the door. Yukena found Kojou in an embarrassing situation. Yukena left the room irritated. Asag asked what game they were hiding and left. In the building next door, Sayako was watching Kojou. At school, Kojou and Yukena went to get information from Natsuki. They encountered Astarte dressed as a maid. She was working with Natsuki as a maid in exchange for freedom. Yukena asked the teacher where Gardos was. The person said the faction was after a weapon called the Lacuvera and told them they didn't need to catch Gardos because she already had everything under control, and asked Kojou to be careful with Vaylor because he had already devoured 2 ancient vampires and he could take him too. In the school corridor, Kojou said it would be difficult to face Vaylor without being able to control his familiars. Yukena asked if he didn't want to suck her blood again. Embarrassed, Kojou said he didn't intend to do anything with her blood. In Asag's room, Kojou asked her to look for government files about this weapon. The two then went to the teacher's room where there were computers. The weapon was an artifact found in the 20th century and had been dormant since then. Asag pushed Kojou because a teacher entered the room. Under the computer table, the two were in an embarrassing situation. Kojou noticed she was still wearing the earrings he gave her as a gift. The teacher left the room, and Kojou's nose was bleeding non-stop. Asag on the roof asked what that was. Kojou said it wasn't necessary because no one knew how to use it. Asag then went to get some drinks. Suddenly, Kojou was attacked by Sayaka. She was furious to know that Kojou sucked Yukena's blood and started attacking non-stop. She said how he could go out with another woman after doing all that with Yukena until she made a cut on Kojou, and several lightning bolts began to emanate from his body. Asag ended up seeing all that. Kojou asked her to move away, and suddenly, Kojou's power began to get out of control, injuring her. Yukena appeared and nullified the magic that was coming out of Kojou's body. Yukena asked what they were doing there and asked them to think about what they had done. Fortunately, Asag's injuries were not serious, and she woke up. Asag told her that a girl started attacking Kojou. Yukena said it was her friend who was jealous of him. On the roof, Kojou and Sayaka were thinking about their actions. Sayaka said she didn't like being by his side and could get pregnant just by breathing the same air as him, and said that if he approached her, she would kill him. Sayaka said he couldn't compete with her because the two had even bathed together. Suddenly, in the infirmary, Astarte said that demons had invaded a building. The demons entered the infirmary. Anargs went into shock and started screaming. Yukena knocked her out to prevent something worse. The demons were after Asag. Gardos was among them. Kojou heard gunfire. Frightened, he and Sayaka went down. Motoki, who was on a balcony, saw the girls being kidnapped and decided to follow them. He took a pill that made him strong and fast. It seems the kidnappers wanted to take them off the island. Motoki took more pills to control the sound waves through the air. In the midst of all this, Vaitler appeared. He said he couldn't let Motoki interfere and attacked him. Far from there, in a place that looked like a warehouse, the girls were. Gardos wanted Asag to use the super-powerful computer to analyze the control commands of the Lacuvera. They were working together to save the girls. I left until the place where the criminal faction was. Kojou picked up Sayaka in his arms to jump to the other side. He almost fell into the water, but Sayaka helped him. They found the teacher, and soon after Vaitler, they encountered the Lacuvera weapon shooting at the place where the girls were. Yukina noticed that vehicles helped the criminal faction all this time. She asked why Vaitler had helped. Gardo said he probably did it out of boredom since he is a very strong vampire, and that Asag should decipher the stone with the control commands of the Lacuvera, or the island would be destroyed. When Gardos left, Nade's body was possessed by something, and she said not to worry because that boy would buy time for them to act. Yukina took his phone and called Kojou. She told him not to let Vaitler and the Lacuvera fight. Kojou asked to let him fight that weapon, and if he failed, he could fight her at will. Vaitler then accepted, and now Kojou would have to face that weapon. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed the twists and turns of Kojou and Yukina's adventures, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. We love hearing from you, so leave a comment below with your thoughts on this episode. And if you've made it this far, comment the secret word, vampire, for a special heart from us. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest videos. See you next time.